Welcome everyone to Ratioed. My name is Harrison Faulkner. Well, in the least surprising news of the year, another cabinet minister in this government has been found guilty of breaking the ethics laws. This time, Mary Ng, this lady, gave $20,000 of taxpayer money to her good pal for some media training. It's starting to become a pattern with this government, who have given up, it appears, on any attempt to try and look ethical in the eyes of Canadians. We're going to get into this latest scandal and see how it chalks up to all the others that this government have gotten themselves into. And that leads us perfectly to the common question for this episode. Of all the great ethics scandals that this government have found themselves in, which in your mind is the most egregious? We're going to get into all of them later on in the show, but let me know in the comments what ethics scandal, in your opinion, is the absolute worst, the most egregious that this government have found themselves in. Drop a like on the video, help us out by subscribing to the True North YouTube channel, and let's get into it. So, here we go. Number 6, ladies and gentlemen, the 6th ethics scandal that this government have gotten themselves into. Earlier this week, Mary Ng, the Minister of Small Business and International Trade, was found guilty by the Independent Ethics Commissioner for breaking the law by contravening conflict of interest rules. Mary Ng gave over $20,000 of our money, our taxpayer dollars, of which they take far too much to begin with, to her good friend Amanda Alvaro's company called Pomp and Circumstance. I mean, just come on, the jokes write themselves, don't they? So in this report by the Ethics Commissioner, there are 2 contracts that Mary Ng gave to Pomp and Circumstance, one in 2019 and one in 2020. Now, the money that she gave to Pomp and Circumstance was for media training, which in better terms is paying someone to teach you to speak English better in front of the camera. Such a great place to put our money, right? By the way, have you ever heard one of these ministers speak on camera? They have about as much charisma as a wet rag. 20K isn't going to do it, and frankly, neither is 100K. Anyways, the Ethics Commissioner, Mario Dion, absolutely slammed Mary Ng in his report, and rightly so. She gave our money, our taxpayer dollars, to her good friend, her former colleague from back in the day. Now, this is taken straight from the report, but just read what the Ethics Commissioner has to say about this. Minister Ng twice failed to recognize a potential conflict of interest involving a friend and oversight of her obligations under the Conflict of Interest Act. There is simply no excuse for contracting with a friend's company. Now, this is how Mary Ng responded to the controversy. As the Commissioner's report indicates, and I repeat now, I take full responsibility for my actions. I should have recused myself and apologized to all for not having done so. At no time was there an issue of any personal benefit for me, nor any intention for anyone to benefit inappropriately. My sincere efforts in the moment fell short of my own high personal standards for transparent and accountable conduct, which Canadians have a right to expect from their elected officials. I am sorry for this shortcoming and it will not happen again. Just to show you how brazen this government has become about routinely breaking the law over conflict of interest violations, just watch how Justin Trudeau responds to a reporter who asks if Mary Ng should resign.
So Mary Ng and ethics. Mary Ng and ethics. You know, another one of your ministers, you've been dinged twice on ethics rules. Is it time for people to start resigning once they've been convicted of ethics violations?
We thank the Ethics Commissioner for his hard work, and the minister spoke directly to that and has apologized in a statement.
And perhaps even worse, in question period, Pierre Poilievre doesn't even ask if Mary Ng should resign. He simply asks the Prime Minister if she should do the honourable thing and pay back the $20,000 to all of us, the taxpayers, for wrongly giving the money to her good pal, her good friend.
From incompetence to bad ethics, we have another Liberal minister found guilty of violating the Ethics Act, this time for giving a $23,000 contract to one of her best friends at a company called Pomp and Circumstances. And it reminds us of the Prime Minister giving $500 million to an organization called the We Charity that gave his family $500,000. So, Mr. Speaker, will this minister be held accountable, and will she be required to pay back the $23,000 in improper contracting that she gave out?
The right honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in this House there's a lot of debate and back and forth, but every now and then there's an opportunity for Canadians to weigh in directly on what's going on in federal politics. And yesterday, the residents of Mississauga Lakeshore had a choice. They could choose between the Conservative Party's politics of division and reckless proposals that included recommending you opt out of inflation by investing in crypto, or our government's approach of being there for Canadians every step of the way and putting more money back in their pockets. Well, Mr. Speaker, the people of Mississauga Lakeshore have spoken and elected a Liberal member of Parliament to come to Ottawa.
Now, maybe this isn't the case, but it sounds an awful lot like he is justifying an ethics violation, an ethics breach, the 6th of his government, by the way, because voters in Mississauga decided to choose a Liberal over a Conservative in a by-election the night before. Strange. Now, folks, shall we break out the scoreboard and take a trip down memory lane to see if we've got the numbers right, if we've got the 6 right? Because once you reach 5, right, what's another one to the whole list? Now, in 2017, the government decided to test the waters to see what they could get away with when Justin Trudeau took a private vacation on the Aga Khan's island. Now, the Aga Khan, the guy is a registered lobbyist, so, I mean, it's a pretty obvious ethics violation, right? You'd think, at least. And this is funny. You can see how fresh they are. You can see how new to the whole game they are of breaking ethics laws when Justin Trudeau could barely respond to a question from Rosemary Barton, of all people. Yes, Rosemary Barton of the CBC. He could barely get through a very basic question from Rosemary Barton.
With all due respect, you were going to take a free holiday from someone you consider a friend, but obviously you have a different definition of a friend than the commissioner. You knew that they had a lobbying registry, that they were set up to lobby the government. How could it not have occurred to you that that might not have been okay?
No. The fact is, we work, sorry, let me just try to reorder the thoughts. We worked with the lobby conflict of interest commissioner on a regular basis on a broad range of issues when the issues come up. On this issue of a family vacation with a personal friend, it wasn't considered that there would be an issue.
Notice how he struggles with this one compared to how he casually brushes off the new ones. Like they're just, like it's water off a duck's back. And in that same year, then Finance Minister Bill Morneau was also found guilty by the Ethics Commissioner for failing to disclose a corporation that he owned that held a lavish French villa for him and his wife. Now, for that ethics violation, Morneau, who is a multimillionaire many times over, had to pay a dangerously high fine of, wait for it, $200, and he remained Finance Minister. The next year, then Fisheries Minister and now Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, Dominic LeBlanc, was also found guilty by the Ethics Commissioner of breaching conflict of interest rules. This time, he awarded a fisheries contract to a relative. His punishment? Well, some might say he got a promotion because he went from fisheries to intergovernmental affairs. Starting to see a pattern here? And now this is where all the fun begins. In 2019, Justin Trudeau was found guilty for a second time of breaking the ethics law, this time for politically pressuring Jody Wilson-Raybould, the then Attorney General of Canada, to offer a deferred prosecution agreement to Quebec-based SNC-Lavalin, the construction firm, in order to protect them from an ongoing criminal case. A big deal. A big-time violation. Now, Trudeau offered to apologize for the first ethics violation. This time, of course not.
Are you apologizing for anything today?
I will be making an Inuit apology this afternoon, but in regards to standing up for jobs and defending the integrity of our rule of law, I continue to say that there was no inappropriate pressure.
Now we get to the We Charity scandal. In 2020, the Trudeau government awarded a contract to the We Charity Group, a sole source contract, for a government project that would cost taxpayers up to $912 million. The We Charity, by being awarded this contract, were to receive $30 million. Now, without getting into the details which you already know about, the We Charity paid Trudeau's family nearly $300,000 in speaking fees alone, and his wife, Sophie Trudeau, hosted a We Charity podcast. Well, the Ethics Commissioner actually cleared Justin Trudeau of any wrongdoing in this case, but not Bill Morneau. The Ethics Commissioner found that Bill Morneau broke 3 conflict of interest rules, 3 ethics violations in one scandal. And it turns out, actually, that if you break 3 conflict of interest rules in one ethics scandal, that is what is enough to get you booted from the Liberal cabinet. Sure enough, Bill Morneau announced his resignation shortly after the result of that report. And thanks to the We Charity scandal, we got one of the absolute best battles between Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau during the We Charity hearings. Now, you've already seen this clip, but since we're on this trip to memory lane, why don't we watch it for old time's sake?
Your 16 seconds are up. Your 16 seconds are up. I'm going to ask you again, because nobody believes you when you say you don't know how much money your family has got from the We Group. So you've had a month to look into that. You knew you were going to testify here. Again, how much money total have your brother, mother, and spouse received from this organization? How much?
that information has been publicly shared, but I will highlight.
Well, then tell me what it is.
My mother
How much?
has
Just the dollar figure.
throughout her life.
The dollar figure, Prime Minister.
Various ways, and is
How
proud
much?
of the work that she's done, and I'm proud of her.
How
as well.
much? I'm looking for a dollar figure.
We can get that number for you if you like. It's been out in the media.
It's been in the media, but you don't know it?
I don't have it in front of me. And quite
You don't
frankly,
know how much your family has received from this organization, which you tried to give $500 million, really?
Can I answer, Mr. Polyev?
I'm waiting. You haven't done an answer so far. Let's make this the first one.
Point of order to suspend.
She's doing.
Point of
order
order
to
I've
suspend,
come to
please.
learn that the chairperson's power has gone out and is no longer part of this meeting. May I propose that we
It's okay.
suspend
We
for
can
a
we
few
can keep
minutes for
Prime Minister and I
Wayne to,
can continue talking.
No.
I suspected that might be a problem. It's very convenient timing for the lights to go out.
Look, I got a message to the effect that his power has gone out. I have no reason to distrust him.
I hope you don't pull the fire alarm now.
Yeah, well, look, there's no intent in my own private home here in the middle of a pandemic. I don't have a fire alarm. I propose
the general process is that the vice chair assumes the chairing of the meeting. So we'll continue.
And that would be me. So we'll continue the meeting. And I now give the floor to the member for Carleton.
Now look, guys, you know it's really bad for Justin Trudeau when the Globe and Mail of all places, the Globe and Mail editorial pages are calling for Mary Ng to resign over this. Take a look at this headline from the Globe. There are no gray areas in Mary Ng's ethics breach. Apologizing is not good enough. What Miss Ng did was what the law prohibits. She had a ministerial decision that benefited a friend. She apologized, but there has been no consequence. There was no gray zone area in Miss Ng's case. And this was no marginal friendship with some obscure contractor. They are both veterans of the inner circle around the person who sets the accountability standards in this government, Mr. Trudeau. But the problem is not in politicians having friends. It is when ministers arrange public business with their friends. When Mr. Eggleton did that 20 years ago, he was bounced from cabinet. Miss Ng faces no consequences. That's not enough. And it's not like Justin Trudeau's ethics scandals haven't gone unnoticed around the world. It is having a real-world impact on Canada's perception for being an ethical country. The Global Corruption Perception Index, which basically ranks the entire world on a leaderboard for most ethical, least corrupt to most corrupt, ranks Canada 14th in the world. Now you might think to yourself, well, 14th, that's not that bad actually. And actually, in a way, 14th isn't that bad. But you also want to look at the year-over-year numbers to see how the world perceives Canada. And it's actually not the best looking picture. The rankings are done on a point basis, 100 being the least corrupt, 0 being the most corrupt. And since Justin Trudeau took over as Prime Minister in 2015, Canada's Global Corruption Perception Index ranking was at 83. Again, not very bad. In fact, if you took 83, that would place us a lot closer to the top of the global leaderboard. But now our score has fallen down to 74. So our perception around the world has gotten worse over this period of time. And it's not just by party either. It's across the board in this country. And if you zoom out even further and you go back to 2000 to see where our country was 22 years ago, our ranking on the Global Corruption Perception Index was 92. So we were at 92, we were the 5th least corrupt country in the world, and now we're down to 14th. Sure, it's not the United States with a score of 67, but I think we can do better, and I think all of us should have higher standards. All right, ratio of the week time, the most coveted prize in Ottawa. This week it's going to a man who really should spend less time on Twitter and perhaps more time working for his constituents. I'm, of course, talking about Mark Gerritsen. Now, Mark Gerritsen, as many left-wingers have been prone to do over the past few months, had a complete meltdown over Elon Musk owning Twitter. I mean, he's a bit late to the party, right? It's kind of almost past the news cycle now, but earlier this week, Mark Gerritsen just had a complete hissy fit, a complete meltdown on Twitter, and dropped a long thread about how Elon Musk attending Queen's University in Kingston was a stain on the city. Check out this thread. Someone should tell at Elon Musk his $44 billion experiment is failing. I can't believe you once lived in Kingston and attended at Queen's U. A real stain on our city. Imagine the world's richest person bending over backwards to impress Donald Trump, only to be snubbed. And of course, like any man who is confident in his beliefs, he blocks responses on Twitter. But that didn't stop the ratio, and that's why he's the real worthy winner. 388 likes in that first tweet, 582 quote tweets. The tweet when he wrote "a real stain on our city," well, he got 186 likes and 320 quote tweets. So he's been getting absolutely blasted for this, as you can imagine. What an absurd thing to write on Twitter. I'm going to pull some of the funniest comments we got from it all. Aaron Woodrick of the Macdonald-Laurier Institute quote tweeted this: "As an MP, perhaps you should worry a little bit less about billionaires who waste their own money and a little bit more about governments that waste tax dollars." The great Spencer Fernando also got in on the action. "This really says it all. At Elon Musk is one of the most influential people on Earth, helping humanity make great strides further into space. He's also a Canadian citizen. Instead of taking pride in this, a Liberal MP is calling him a stain. This attitude holds Canada back." And this Twitter user writes, "Mark, pick a lane. You're an idiot." And he pulls up a post from Mark Gerritsen from, back in 2016, when Mark Gerritsen wrote this: "Here's something you might not know. Elon Musk, who invented PayPal, Tesla, and SpaceX, went to Queen's University back in the early 90s. So it seems like back in 2016, Mark Gerritsen was all pretty excited about that fact. He wasn't a stain on Kingston then, but now, of course, because Musk stands up for free speech, because Musk is taking aim at Bill C-11, it appears, well, now Elon Musk is a real stain on Kingston." Now, if I could say one thing to Mark Gerritsen, it will be this: you've got such bad takes that if you do decide to open up your replies, well, we're not going to have much of a ratio of the week award because you're just going to take it home every single week. So maybe for your sake, and maybe for our show's sake, best to keep them blocked like any confident man would. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for us this week on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Harrison Faulkner. I'll catch you next Monday, and this is Ratio.